What were the discussions in the writers' room about that? Because I know for viewers, every time that doll shows up, it's like the gay gasp. It is, I see it. Because not every episode, it pops up here and there. And even I do it in the GG. Yeah. So I'm like, it's here. Because I know the fans love seeing that doll. But can you talk about in the writers' room, like when, it's not in every episode, it's not always a part of the story, but then all of a sudden when Blue's going through something like he is right now.
He talks to Kenya.
He does.
It's a safe spot for him. It's his friend. You know, and we try to bring it in. We try to bring it as often as possible. We have many discussions, right, Felicia, about bringing that doll in. But, you know, when he's going through the crisis that he's going through now, when he finds out about his father, who is his father, but, you know, not biologically, he talks to Kenya about it, and they go to therapy, and it becomes a surrogate voice for him. But it's a nice tool to have, you know. It gives us an insight into when Blue is in crisis and when he's in pain or when he's in joy. You see him out on the land playing with that little doll, you know, in his imaginary world. But it's, yeah, we know, like, one of the very first questions I had when I started the show, I said, is Blue gay? You know, with the doll thing. So I came in with that, you know, that's a little question. But, you know, I need to know what I'm writing for. And no, we don't know. It's just a doll. He's a kid and he plays with toys.
I've been asking that question since day one. That's the answer I get. It's like, he's a little boy. We don't know yet. It'll come out. Does anybody else notice the doll, though? Am I the only one that, like, really pays attention to it? I get gasp at that, and then when Ralph Angel has his shirt off, I might gasp at that, too. Oh, yeah. Like, okay.
That's not just a gay gasp. I even universal gasp.
That's a universal.
Collective gasp. It's a very inclusive gasp. We're going to get to some audience questions. We're going to get to audience questions here in a second. Dawn-Lyen, I want to ask you, I guess I always like to ask the actors, if you got to go in the writer's room and kind of really shape a story for your character, what would you like to see Charlie go through that she hasn't gone through yet?
Wow, Jim.
I mean...
way to bury the lead.
That's not... I mean, I said no curveballs. That's not a curveball.
Oh, God. I feel like I had a gay gasp just now. Wow, what an amazing question. What would I want to shape that she goes through that I haven't seen her go through? You know what's interesting, which is I don't know if this is the show, like, the reality is that we do center Black stories on this show, right? And that's a revolution in itself. It's to center, this is essentially a story about a Black family in rural America. This is a farm. I mean, I have literally never seen that before. At least I can't recall it, seeing a Black family in rural America. But it would be really interesting to see her in her white side of the family. Like, that would be just interesting to see. I don't know if I would necessarily want to see it on our show because it's not necessarily, I think, the space is not exploring what we're exploring, but I'm curious about her reconciliation with all these parts of herself. That's sort of the constant theme that I feel she embodies, is all these pieces of herself that don't seem to fit or shouldn't, she has to make space for, and thus the world has to make space for her, right? And that's an interesting question. That's my first crack at that answer. Good. I feel like I'm going to be thinking about that question all night, and then I'll just send you ideas on Twitter. I'll just DM you, like, here's the third pass.
Doesn't she follow me now? She started following me today, and I sent her DM, and I'm like, you're just following me now? This is going to be my first question, like, you're just following me now? I can't believe I didn't ask you that before, because we've done panels before.
Oh my God, it's such a good question. Can you ask that of me every time you do a panel?
Sure.
And I'll just have a different, because I'm going to be thinking about it forever.
It's our staple question.
Love it.
I love it. Do you guys have questions for the lovely cast and creators here? All right, I'm going to start. We'll start right here in front first. Do we have I don't know if we have a mic runner, so just.
I can.
Okay.
Over, so.
Okay. Let me go right behind you, ma'am, and then we'll go to you.
Lisa, you spoke briefly on jumping into a show like this as a showrunner where there's different writers each time. How easy is it to just jump in and follow a template for a show?
Did everybody hear the question?
She asked how easy when you jump into a writer's room, how easy to follow a template for a show when you're new on the show. This was my first season, and we were blessed to have an amazing, amazing showrunner that had been with us since season 1, Anthony Sparks. And only 2 of the writers had been there before, so a bunch of us were new. He just laid out the foundation. He started off day 1 telling us that we are going to be bold and we are going to be fearless, and that's how it started. So when you have a show and it allows you to do that, any story is on the table, literally. So you follow your leader and you just give it yourself and you work hard and you throw out your ideas and you try not to be scared and try not to say something dumb, because not every idea is going to hit. So you got to try and you got to reach for the stars. But we were blessed to have the amazing leader at the top of Anthony Sparks. And Felicia Pride, our room was amazing. We had an amazing group of writers, 4 women, 2 men, and 1 writer's assistant that also had the opportunity to write. So it was very inclusive, it was very open to ideas and taking a shot.
And if anybody else wants to answer that question after the director's how easy is it to jump in on a template, or someone new to the actors who are used to the characters?
I was a fan of the show because I didn't come on until season 2, so I was already a big fan. I've been a fan of Ava's work, and so when I heard about the show, I read the books, the show is amazing. So I was incredibly blessed to actually get on it, but I was very nervous about stepping into it because it's you can feel it's like a family vibe, and it's such it feels like a tight ship from the outside. But I got there when I first got booked the role. I got an email from Ava herself, like, "Welcome to the family," and I'm like, "Excuse me, how did you get my email?" So that kind of broke the ice. And then when I got there, it was very welcoming. Everybody from the PA. I'm sitting in the makeup trailer, and the director for my episode, Amanda Marsalis, comes in. She introduces herself to me, and she's like, "Do you have any ideas for the scene?" Nobody ever asked me that. I do. So, usually do you have questions? And it was like, no, what are your ideas? This is wonderful. So that just set the tone for the day, and I feel like that's across the board on this show. It's the most collaborative set I've ever been on. So that it made it very easy. Stars.
Cree, how was it for you coming in? You were mostly working with Rutina, but still the style of the show and coming into that.
It was so deep for me because I have been doing voiceover work for the past 25 years. So I have not been on camera. So it's very deep, man. I had just gotten my foot wet doing a television show called Better Things that I had just done right before. And then, so I came on, hi, what's up, Miss Hero? My daughter's in the audience. I came in shaking in my boots. And I, too, watched the show on purpose, independently, and loved it. And, I was very scared. And I was scared for all kinds of reasons, just to be out there again. I was very nervous. And as soon as I got there, everybody was so beautiful. Even just the ride with the driver was everything. Him asking me, I told him that my mama was from Bogalusa, Louisiana. He said, "Oh, I know them Clarks." And then, so we talked about them Clarks, and then by the time I got to the set, I was really starting to relax. And then, honestly, this experience has been one of the most incredible experiences for me because I really did form a coven on the set. I took all these ladies home with me, and I am not going to let them go. And I have a joke, it's the truth, how I walk to the elevator every night. I kind of stumble like this because they got me so loaded the night before. So for me, it was really just like an incredible experience. Yeah, and to come back after 25 years and to be working on this caliber of a show, I have to say, with this kind of defined character, with these incredible lines, it was an honor, man, and I really learned a lot.
That's great.
Yeah.
My question is about your relationship.
Hours?
Yes, you're the writer and the director.
Oh, okay.
In
In general, or just me and Lisa.
It's friendly.
Yeah.
There seems to be, I've watched since episode 1, season 1. There seems to be so much air in the script and time and the beauty of letting these wonderful characters talk to each other and listen to one another. It's really uncanny how beautiful that air and space is while watching. And I'm wondering, is that a written situation or is that a directorial situation? How do you get these beautiful creatures who are so talented and wonderful to take a moment and let us breathe in the whole atmosphere of the
I mean,
script?
on the script side, when we're writing it, I have a loud voice.
Yeah,
On the script side, when we're writing it,
Yeah.
we take that in mind. Our creator, our writer is Ava DuVernay. She's a filmmaker, so that's the look that she created. So we leave space in the script. We try and create opportunities where these guys can do their magic. These amazing women are directors.
Yeah, and I think from my standpoint, you know, I see that in the script, and it was important for me, which you do in the prep, meeting with the writer and the showrunner, Anthony, and talking about tone for what's on the page, and also emotionally what they're thinking. And then they let you go, you know, so it's, and they're guiding you, of course, you know, they're always there. She was there, the writer, the main writer always flies in or is there if they can be. So you're working hand in hand, but that space, you know, that's a relationship that I have to say is all of ours together, including the talent. You know, because I have in my head when I'm looking at a script where I want space, where I want the audience to feel that emotion. I have a couple of scenes in mind. You know, I cried when I watched my rough cut. I had tears, you know, because of that space that I had in my head that I wanted to get on that screen that's not written. And it was there, and it was like beautiful. And I, you know, that's what Ava's done from the beginning, is create that look, that feel, that emotion. And, you know, that is what's so important about Queen Sugar, because that's the visibility, and that's what's going to bring in change, more shows like this. It's really that emotion, and I'm glad you said that, because it is really important, especially to this series and what really works in it. And that's kudos to all the writers and the other directors and the talent, because they bring that space, those beautiful breaths.
Dawn-Lyen, I want to ask you about that. And I feel like maybe I've asked you this one before, but there are so many great scenes where any character, but Charlie, is just like either looking out a window or just watching something happen, and the camera really stays on you. And I love those scenes because you're just thinking like, oh, she's going through stuff. There's stuff happening right now, which is great acting. But also for you as an actor, how are those moments? Because it's not rush, rush, rush. It's you're just going to look out this window for 5 minutes. You know what I mean? But talk about that as an actor.
Yeah, I have to say I'm always so excited when I see on the page there's like 2 lines, because that means that all of this other stuff is going to be happening that's not about necessarily the language. It's about story, and it's about character, and it's about journey. And I think it's so fulfilling as an actor to be given that time, to be given the permission to take the time and to really just dimensionalize the experience. Don't go to the 2nd layer, but go to the 8th, go all the way down. So it is such a joy, in particular, playing Charlie and having those moments. Because it's also like, often I look at the script and who's got all that language? And like, the scenes are just like, she's still talking, you know? So, it's totally, and so that takes a certain, she has an RPM that she moves at and speaks at and lives her life at and fights her fight at. So when that slows down, when she hits a wall, when something, just giving time and space to allow her to process something, I'm like, I just milk it and I ask for more. And I just like, please give me this time. And it's not just because I want a break. It's just it's because in those moments, I think we get to witness and be with her in the unknown. And that is, to me, where the most transformative processes are taking place, is when she's really coming up against the unknown, so much so she doesn't have language or action for it. She's just processing it, taking it in.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I had one thing to add to that, because it's a fun thing that's coming up in 409, and it won't be too much of a spoiler, but there was a scene that I had, and boy, it was my first day, and I asked for a speed change on the footage, unspoken, and that's one of the things that made me cry when I watched it, because it came to life, and it's the unspoken moments, and when you see it in 409, you'll get what I mean. It was a pivotal part of Rutina's and Dawn's relationship, and you'll see it in there, and it was critical to actually be telling the story without the words, and they did it beautifully, and it was really important at that point.
I can't wait.
I know, I can't wait, can't wait. Let's do this side. Anybody have a question on this side of the room? No? We'll do right here in the center of the blue shirt.
First, thank you so much for all your work on the show, everyone who works on the show. I'm also really glad the question was already asked about the space, because that was exactly my question. So I was like glad I'm not the only one who's experiencing that. The show is like incredibly transports me, right? It's like very therapeutic to watch, and it's not just, I mean, it's about the space, but it's also about where it's taking place, right? In spaces and places that we haven't seen in mainstream television. So I'll ask a different question, and this is, I guess, more for the writers. The show does such an amazing job of balancing the institutional, right, the macro, with the very personal and familial. And so I'm curious as to what the process is like, even from like episode to episode, for balancing those two, because you can always tell there's a larger institutional critique kind of going on in the season and the whole show, obviously, but then you have the interpersonal and the familial and like the everyday stuff. How does that balance work? And I know it's a lot with the showrunner, but coming in or directing included as well. How does that balance work with like the macro and the?
I mean, every episode to me, I think, begins with the borderlands, the family. This is a family story that we're telling, and then from there, it's about putting them in crisis, right? Giving them obstacles to overcome. Charlie tends to be the character that drives the plot more. She revs up, right? She's got that engine. Nova tends to be the one that is kind of leads us on a spiritual journey of some sort, or is challenging the system in some ways, although Charlie does that non-stop in a different way, on a bigger level. First and foremost, every episode, every time we sit down to break a story, it is always about what kind of a story we're going to tell for Charlie, or for Ralph Angel, or for Nova. We start with character, and then we find the plot that will help us tell these stories, these interpersonal stories. So is that kind of?
Can I ask you a question, Lisa? Well, yeah. Because I agree about, the actors get the scripts, and we find out weeks before too, like a couple weeks before. And so it is always impressive and always satisfying to see this balance, or to see this interaction, this interplay between the macro and the micro, the big social questions and the deep personal ones. So I just wanted to ask you, how do you find your way to the big institutional questions through character? What does that look like?
We're in the South, right? So we've got a whole lot of history to play with. And that's pretty much, we go into the background, we explore the family history, and then we start looking at, okay, what kind of obstacles is this particular family going to deal with in Louisiana? So the external kind of informs it, like the people, the supporting characters, in this case the Landrys or the Ujas. Thank you. It's so amazing. You write a script and then you like put it aside and you get yes. But yeah. So we always have something to say about the world that we're in, the world that we're writing about, and in this particular show, we're always affecting change. And which is one of the fun things. It's such a blessing to be able to work on a show where you're talking about change and putting our characters in a position where they can affect change and change the world. I mean, literally change the world, their world, and the world around them, especially Charlie, who's always taken up another level and challenging the powers that be. And it's a very rare thing to see an African American family have that opportunity. They are self-determinative. They decide who they're going to be. They decide and define what the borderlands are. And I mean, for us as writers, it's an inspiring thing to do, to be able to do this powerful family set in Louisiana.
Unfortunately, I think we're out of time, so we have to wrap up. But thanks everybody for being here. Thanks,
Thank you, Jim.